My name is Jim Manning, and I'm the author of Patriotism, Unhinged, available worldwide through online retailers. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about all the mistakes that were made by the conglomeration of intelligence agencies and by people in the media who wanted to assist them. It kind of reminds me of a book I read years ago by Jimmy Breslin, The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. I would say this gang couldn't think straight, because what I'm going to do is give you a tidbit probably every time I make a film of something that would ordinarily, for anybody with an IQ over 75, would draw a conclusion. I wanted to talk a little bit about the body. The body moving from Parkland Hospital to the funeral home, and ultimately the next thing that was ever filmed was a group of CIA agents trying desperately to get it up and in the back of the airplane of Air Force One. I believe they even had to break some handles to get it in there. The next thing that you probably saw if you were alive at the time was that when they got to Andrews Air Force Base, they all came down on a elevator from plane, and the coffin was carried over and put in a gray naval ambulance, and Jackie, Robert Kennedy, and John Kennedy's personal physician got into that ambulance. That ambulance was driven from Andrews Air Force Base to Bethesda Naval Hospital. It arrived somewhere around 8 o'clock. Jackie, Robert Kennedy, and the doctor got out of the ambulance, went into the hospital, and were accompanied up to a waiting area. They got there about 8:15 or something. What the newspaper people saw was the coffin inside of that gray naval ambulance move and go around to the back of the hospital, to the morgue area, where it pulled in next to another gray naval ambulance that had been there for some time. We want to show you a short film clip by a man named Jim Jenkins, who was on site at the back of the Bethesda Hospital and was waiting for the ambulance to eventually come. It came in right around 6 p.m. He saw that the group of 6 corpsmen, naval corpsmen, went out, and they brought in a coffin that was more like a transport coffin, something that somebody killed in combat might be sent home in. Inside that, he was in a body bag, which he never had been in a body bag in Dallas. And when they took the body out and brought it, they didn't go into the morgue. They set it down, and probably were told to set it down there, outside the door. And then they were dismissed. And the Secret Service picked up the body and took it in. Mr. Jenkins viewed the body coming out of the travel coffin, also out of the bag. And his thoughts were, this is really strange for the president to be sent in this sort of a situation. They took the body and put it up on a gurney and wheeled it into a room close by. And that would have been no later than 6:45 to 6:55.
All I saw was the body being brought in what I consider to be a shipping casket. That was striking, and the fact is that it was the president's body in that such a ordinary plane.
You saw that?
Yes, I did.
You saw the shipping casket?
Yes, I did.
And that's not typical protocol to put a president in a shipping casket.
I wouldn't think so.
You witnessed that yourself.
Yes, I saw.
Check mark, not time, but you saw that part.
Yeah, the casket came in. It was brought in by people. They were in business suits, and there may have been a couple of military officers with it. But it was brought in, and it was brought into the morgue proper, set down on the floor. Paul helped them take the body out, and they put the body on the table in front of me. When the body was put on the table, everybody was asked to leave. The body was on the table, still wrapped into sheets. The head and the body was separate. And then Dr. Boswell left the morgue for, 15, 20 minutes maybe. And I just assumed he was going back up to the lavatory to, talk to Dr. Humes. And
while the body's in front of you?
Yeah, the body's in the morgue with Paul and I.
This is what time?
I assumed that had to be somewhere between 6:30 and 7 o'clock.
That means the body was at the hospital an hour and 10 or 15 minutes before Jackie, Robert Kennedy, and Jack's personal physician. There are so many naval people who were there taking pictures and talking about it and whatnot. There's a time difference of over an hour, and there's no way to explain it. And so that's what I mean by a gang that can't think straight. Now remember, he was being treated by 16 physicians at Parkland Hospital in Dallas. And they all had a lot of experience with gunshot wounds. The city of Dallas is where generally, under the law, would have the capability and be charged with doing the autopsy there. That's where the crime was committed. However, with guns drawn, they almost ran over the coroner who was trying to stop them to get it to Bethesda Hospital and for the autopsy to be conducted by Dr. Boswell and Dr. Humes. Dr. Boswell had never done a gunshot autopsy, and Dr. Humes may have done one or two, but certainly wasn't, Cyril Wecht. Cyril Wecht once told me that within, I think he used hours instead of miles, but he said within 3 hours that 4 or 5 of the best autopsy doctors in the United States could have been brought into Washington. So that makes you think. In the autopsy room was General Curtis Bombs-Away LeMay, and he was giving a lot of orders. General Curtis LeMay ostensibly was supposed to be in Canada on vacation. However, he showed up before the autopsy, was in the autopsy room giving orders, and I tried to find some educational areas that he might have studied medicine, but I wasn't able to. I don't know, maybe gave blood to the Red Cross. It appeared that he had been called in to take over the situation. There were 2 FBI agents in the room during the autopsy, and these 2 agents have been very, very careful about what they said while they were still working for the government. But I think that They had some really good stories about what was going on in there. And maybe someday they'll come alive with it, or we'll find it in their notes. One of the things that has always astounded me is the amount of minutia that some investigators go into. It may be that all of that is coming from the CIA's propaganda department, part of the mighty Wurlitzer. But angles of shots and, windage and this kind of stuff, it really is, it doesn't mean anything to me. You have to look at the heart of the matter. You have to look with an eye toward what you really believe and see the evidence that gives you that conviction.